how's it going, guys? So I just got off work. I don't really know why I said that because it doesn't matter because I work from home. Uh, but I did just finish work. But now I'm going to the store to get food and stuff. Life of a powerlifter, man. You always end up spending like half your life at the store or eating food or prepping food. But anyway, I kind of wanted to talk about the importance of mindset. Not just in terms of powerlifting, but in terms of life and everything in general. So I guess there's a couple examples I want to go through, and really, well, one of them is completely not related to powerlifting, one of them is completely related to powerlifting, and then one of them is just more sport focused, all kind of triggered because of things that have gone on, maybe with people that I work with, or just generally in the world. So the first is about someone that went through an incredibly traumatic experience at the age of 22, and they were essentially told that for the rest of their life they weren't ever going to be able to walk again, their health would continue to deteriorate, and they would maybe only live another 20 years, and that's at best, because people that suffer from ALS usually have like a horribly low life expectancy. You know, maybe it's like 5 to 10 years, and 20 years is actually like a pretty good prediction. And obviously, if you are up to date with the news and everything, you'll know that this person is Stephen Hawking. And the thing that makes Stephen Hawking unique and inspirational to me, regardless of the things that he's done for humanity in terms of physics, understanding our universe, how it came to be, all that stuff, like regardless of any of that, which obviously is incredibly important, the thing that makes him unique is how he was able to manage and deal with his circumstances, because I really doubt that for any of us it's easy or even something that we could imagine to be told that we'd never have use of our legs again, that we would never be able to walk, we would never be able to lift. I mean, I can imagine that. We wouldn't be able to do any of these things. We'd never be able to play with our children. We'd never be able to make children. You know, there's so many things that just completely wiped off the table at that moment. But the fact that this man was able to then live for another about 55 years of his life and be one of the most influential people that has ever walked the earth is incredibly inspiring, because he was able to put aside everything, not being able to talk, not being able to move, having to sit in a wheelchair all the time, and not being able to just do the things that he wanted to do. And he was able to find not only great success, immense success in the way that we measure it, but also he was able to find happiness. You know, if you read a lot of his more personal writings, he talks about how he was able to find happiness in his family, in his relationships. He was able to find it in his work. You know, even though he was doing one of the most stressful jobs. You know, like any type of research is incredibly stressful because you always have to be at that front line. Like if something happens, you have to be there. You have to understand it. If a discovery comes out, you have to be ready to approach it. And so he was able to achieve all of this. He was able to be one of the most influential scientists of a generation, and he was able to have 50 years of life purely because of his mindset, right? Like, sure, he might have just had like a really bad prediction of how long that he would live, and maybe that's why he was able to get to 40 years, 50 years even, rather than 20. But my opinion on it is that the main reason people don't have greater life expectancies when they have these types of diseases is due to the fact that most people that get those diseases become depressed because they become victims of their circumstances, and they don't accept that they have the power to empower themselves and find happiness. You know, like happiness isn't something that we are all entitled to or we're all given, or it's something that we should expect. It's something that we have to work for. You know, like it's something that I have to work for on a daily basis. I think there's a number of times in my life that things happen and I could just sit there and decide, like, you know, oh, I don't want to be happy anymore. Like, you know, this bad thing has happened, so let me just be upset about it. And, you know, like, I completely understand that there are mental illnesses, you know, anxiety, depression, things like that, things that I have suffered from. But at the same time, like, yes, it's difficult to overcome that, but you can still find happiness. If you find positive ways to work through those things, and you find positive ways and positive habits to guide your life, you can get past almost anything. And in my opinion, if Stephen Hawking can sit there at age 22 with a debilitating and chronic illness that shuts down your body progressively and say to himself, you know what, fuck this shit, man. Like, I'm not going to sit here and be someone that doesn't do anything with their life. I'm going to make my greatest achievements come after this has happened to me. I'm going to continue to succeed, and I'm going to continue to shape the way that we see the world and have an impact on people, because I know I'm capable of that. I know I'm intelligent, and I know that I'm willing to put in the work despite everything. Because he could have just sat there and said, oh, you know what, like, the government's going to give me, like, money. I'm good. Like, I don't do anything. Like, I can just sit here and chill. But, like, what was he going to do, man? Like, you're going to sit there for the rest of your life and just be depressed about your situation rather than just empowering yourself. He empowered himself. He took control of his situation, and he owned it. He owned everything that happened to him. And he became such a great person and such an influential person because of the way that he approached that, right? And so I guess the next one that I want to talk about is someone that is probably more controversial, and if you read my blog, I've got blog posts coming about this, but it's Tiger Woods. And I wanted to talk about him because, well, it's interesting. Like, his situation is interesting because a lot of the things that have happened to him have been self-caused. You know, his marital problems, obviously he went out and he cheated on his wife like a billion times, and he fucked up in that sense, right? But personally, I don't think that's a huge transgression, because having been in that industry a lot, I know that basically every single player is like doing the same shit. They just don't, because of, well, there's twofold reasons. In my opinion, like, race is obviously one, because it's like the whitest sport in the world. Not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that being a black man in a particularly white sport is always going to be challenging, and there's always going to be reasons that people want to attack you, and you're always going to be on top of the list. And then the second is his success. By far the most successful golfer that's ever lived. In terms from a financial stats, from most tournaments won. He hasn't won the most majors, but regardless of that, right? But the thing that gets me is if you wipe away all that shit, and even like the DUI, like, because that's obviously something that's happened to him, and maybe he doesn't have the best mental approach to his own personal life, but I definitely think he does to golf, because, you know, the thing that inspired me the most about him is in 2008. If you don't know golf, you won't know this, but this is the thing that inspired me, is during the USPGA Championships of 2008, it basically ended up coming down to a playoff, so, you know, everyone knows what a playoff is, I figure, but essentially they have to play like extra holes to decide who is the best, because the score is the same, right? So, yeah, so basically it's like in powerlifting, when you're tired, you go down to body weight. In golf instead, you just pick, you then play an extra hole to assess who's going to win. But anyway, so he's played 72 holes, which is kind of a lot. That's like 12 hours of golf, right? No, 16 hours actually. And so he's had a knee injury that he's been suffering from like the entire season, but he's just like an animal. He's like, you know what, fuck it, I need to win. I'm playing good golf, so why would I stop? So anyway, they go to like extra holes, and the man is like limping down the course. Like, he's been limping the entire week, and it's just got progressively worse. And now he's at this point where he is basically not able to walk. Like, his caddy is like basically carrying him around the golf course. But he sets up for every shot, and he approaches it with the same mentality that he has been the entire week, his entire career. He still keeps going. Like, it doesn't matter what happens, doesn't matter where he hits his shot. He's going to approach that next shot, and he's going to see it from the new standpoint and a new opportunity to make success. And I say that is important because he suffered from back injuries, he suffered from knee injuries. He's been out from golf like more times than I can count. But every single time he came back and he gave it his absolute all. He spent 6 months preparing to get back on the tour. Like, right or wrong, however you feel about Tiger Woods, it's undeniable that he's one of the greatest competitors ever, simply because of his determination. Like, he could have easily quit the first time, the second time, the third time, the fourth time. And like, seeing him play golf again last weekend is just crazy to me, because this is someone that I grew up watching and idolizing like 10 years ago, right? And he's still there. Like, despite his age, despite his injuries and everything, he's still trying to make it happen, because he knows that he has something left to prove, you know? Like, he's still determined to prove that he's the best that ever played golf. And I truly think that he is. You know, like, he was sports' first billionaire. So for anyone to argue that he's still doing it for the money is ludicrous, because he's actually a really intelligent investor. He has his own golf course design company, and if you know anything about golf, you'll know that golf course design is like how you make the real money in golf. And he has his foundations, he gives back to the sport, and all that shit, which I think is important. But like, most relevantly of all is that he just kept going because he knew he had something to prove, and he, from his position, like, he wasn't done, and he wasn't willing to give up regardless of what happened to him. And I think, you know, I look at other people in that sport, in many different sports, that just like say, oh, you know, like, I've had an injury, or like, you know, I haven't played well this season or whatever, so I'm just gonna throw in the towel. Like, they just give up because it's too difficult to keep going. And I think, like, in life, it's always going to be too difficult to keep going. Like, there's so many things that happen, and you just decide, like, fuck, like, do I really want to keep doing this? Like, is this something that I want to do? You know, and sometimes, like, that's a really important thing to think, because maybe you're at the wrong point in your life. But at the same time, I think you have to look at it, and you have to realize, like, if there's something that's really important to you, you need to keep going. You need to put aside all the bullshit, and you need to get on with it. And I think that, you know, from my own personal perspective, which I would say would be the third example, for a long time, like, in sport, and specifically golf being one of them, I just could not get my mind right. Like, everything that happened, I couldn't handle it. I couldn't deal with the golf course. I couldn't deal with the people that I was playing against. And I just couldn't handle it because I let every single thing get to me. And I wasn't confident enough in myself. And I didn't have these goals and the determination that I have now, that I found through powerlifting, to just keep going. And I think with powerlifting, you know, when I first got into it, I said I want to be really good at it. And every single person that saw me or met me at meet would always say, like, oh, you're so tall, like, oh, you're too tall to squat, like, it's just crap like that, like, stupid shit. Like, even down to the point that I went to a meet recently, and David Ricks, if you know who David Ricks is, he's like a legend in powerlifting, one of the best powerlifters, and he said to me, oh, are you sure you're here for the right sport? You know, this isn't basketball. And I was like, you know, standing there, I was like, oh yeah, it's a joke, it's funny, haha. But like, at the same time, you know, that it still hurts, like, when someone says that to you, because I work incredibly hard to, like, make my squat, well, it's not going to be my best lifts, let's be honest, but I'm working incredibly hard to overcome the challenges that I face there. And I know that there's always going to be challenges and difficulties. But I think if you let that be a limitation, it always will be, right? Like, it would be so easy for me to say, like, oh yeah, I'm never going to be good at squatting because I have really long femurs, and I'm 6'6", and I have back problems, and all this shit. Like, it would be so easy for me to say that. But like, 2 days ago, I squatted 584, which to a lot of people isn't impressive, and it's not a lot. But like, I used to see people scoring 6 plates, and I used to think, like, fuck, that's impressive. Like, that's a lot of weight. And now, like, I can lift it, and I'm like, that ain't shit. Like, it ain't shit. I gotta keep going. I gotta get stronger. I gotta get better, because I can see people in my weight class squatting like 700. And yeah, I'm not comparing myself to other people by any stretch of the imagination, but I know that I'm capable of more. I know I'm capable of scoring 700 plus. I know I'm capable of putting together a really big total, and I know I'm capable of being a world champion. Like, whether or not it happens, whether or not it takes me 5 years or 10 years, I'm gonna keep going until I get there, because I know that I'm capable of that, and I'm not gonna let anything hold me back from my opportunity to be successful. Like, I do powerlifting purely for myself. I don't do this shit for anyone else. I don't do it to get rich. I don't do it to get famous. This isn't a sport like that. It's not a sport where those opportunities exist. The opportunity is purely to prove to myself that I am the strongest that I can be, and I want to become the strongest version of myself. And I think that for a lot of people, you look at powerlifting and everyone just feels like they're entitled to this approval. You know, like, I even go through this sometimes, like, where I'll be like, why doesn't my Instagram get more views or followers or shit like that? And then sometimes I just think, like, why do you care? You know, like, fine, it's beneficial to my business that my promotion goes well, right? Obviously that's important. But at the same time, like, I don't need to put my approval in other people's hands. I need to prove to myself that I'm as strong as I can be. I need to continue to get stronger, to work harder, to approach things from a better perspective, and to grow. You know, and I think ultimately what it comes down to is that we only have control over the way we see things. We don't have control over most shit that happens in our lives, like, because there are millions and billions of people in the world, and people make decisions, and those decisions have an impact on you, right? Things happen, bad things happen, good things happen, and ultimately you can't control them. But the only thing you can control and the only thing that you can affect is your perception of them. So, you know, if you go into a situation and you immediately think that it's going to be negative, or something happens and you consign it in your mind as being negative, it becomes negative. It's no longer just a thing that happened, it's a negative thing that happened. And I think that's where we all kind of fall down in a lot of ways, because, you know, you look at a meet, for example, and you miss your first squat, right? It's a thing, it happened, right? And yeah, okay, it could be a bad thing, because maybe you wanted to squat 600 that day, and your opener was 550 and you missed that, so it's like, oh, you know, like, now my confidence is gone because I don't know that I'm going to be able to squat more, and it's like, well, fine. But the reality of that situation is, if you decide that that's a bad thing, if you walk out of the competition and you're like, I missed 550, my whole day's ruined, your day will probably be ruined. Like, let's be real. But you've got to look at it from a mature perspective. You've got to realize that you still control those other 2 attempts. You've got to realize that you can go out there and prove to the judges that you're capable of squatting that weight, and you squat it, and you show them that you can use the right technique. Then you're going to get the squats, man. You're going to put your day back on track. And so what if you miss one squat? Like, it does, there's 9 lifts, man. As long as you can get as close to your gym lifts as you can, that's great. If you get a little bit more, that's great. You know, if you're 10 pounds short of your goal total, that's great too. Because, you know, realistically in life, long-term goals are just things are unrealistic, and they're things that we want, but we don't really know how to get there yet. And short-term goals are realistic things that we're aiming for, and they're kind of markers of our progress. And then we reassess our long-term goals after that. So I think, you know, me sitting here and saying, I want to have a 2,000 pound total, that's cool. How the fuck am I going to get there? That's not a goal. That's just something that I want to achieve in the future, right? A short-term goal would be like, at my next meet, I want to total over 1,700. And here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to do this consistent programming. I'm going to track my food. I'm going to do all this stuff, right? And I think, no, that's cool and that's really useful. And that's ultimately what is important, is having these short-term goals that help us stay on track. But the reality is the most important thing is just remembering what's important. And being able to say that something is just something. It doesn't always have to be good or bad. Like, you know, scoring more weight is probably going to be a good thing, and that's great, and that should be encouragement to you. But not scoring more weight and having a bit of a plateau, you know, you shouldn't look at it as like, oh, everything's gone to shit, like, this is terrible, I should quit powerlifting. You should look at it as like, well, now there's just another opportunity for me to grow. Maybe I should start looking into different programming. You know, you shouldn't question yourself. You ultimately just have to create this confidence in your mind that you're capable of doing everything that you think you are. Because that's the only way you can do stuff. You know, if you tell yourself you can't, you'll never be able to do it. And I know that it's like the most cliche phrase of all time, but it's fucking true. Like, if you keep telling yourself you'll never be able to squat 400 pounds, you'll never squat 400 pounds. I know, because I did it for about 6 months. I failed 4 or 5 about 8 times before I actually squatted it, because I didn't think that I was capable of doing it. And as soon as I changed my mindset, as soon as I approached it from a different way, as soon as I squatted like 395 for a triple, I knew that I was capable of doing it. And that's just the reality of it. You have to be able to build that confidence. You have to have the right mindset. Otherwise, you're never going to succeed in powerlifting. And you're probably not going to be very successful in life, because every time a bad thing happens, you're just going to fall on the floor and scream that you're a victim. And the reality is, there might be people that help you back up, but more likely than not, there won't. And so you have to become strong, and you have to become capable of handling yourself by yourself. And not many people can do that, and that's why success is difficult. But yeah, I didn't mean to get so negative at the end. But thank you very much for watching. I'm sorry this dragged on, but hopefully going to consistently create more content like this, where it's just real conversation, and hopefully you guys vibe with it. And yeah, let me know if you got any thoughts, if you agree with me or disagree with me. But yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you for watching.